What's up, guys? It's CG Mike, and today I'm going to be uh, making a tutorial on how I made that plane crash animation in my last video. So, without further ado, let's jump into a new file of Blender. So, plain general 3D file. You don't need any of the starting stuff, so just make it a full plane, just default, and import your plane you're gonna or helicopter, spaceship, whatever you want to use that you're gonna break up. So I'm using this plane model, which is in the link in the description if you want to. It comes in an FBX, OBJ, and uh, a dot blend file, and it's textured. It's really nice. So we're gonna go here, select your plane. See the origin is way down there for some reason. Let's just set it to the geometry so it's nice in the center. And you want to make sure that happens just because we're going to be playing with rigid bodies, and you don't the origin actually is pretty important with all that stuff. So I'm going to go into the top orthographic view, take this plane, slide it back a little bit, the airplane, and we're going to add in a plane, aka our ground. So go here, we're going to scale it up, give it a good, decent width, and then a decent length. You want this kinda a little longer because the plane is going to crash and sort of slide along this. So um, now that we have our plane, we're going to want to name it to ground. uh, F2 if you want to use the hotkey, and then M if you want to add it into a new collection. So now we're going to animate our plane. So I'm gonna take this plane up a little higher. It's going to come down from a little bit from the top and then hit this and break apart. So we're going to go location and rotation. So if we click N, you can see we just gave it a keyframe for that. Gonna jump to frame 20, G, X, G, Z. So the plane kind of drops hard, and we're gonna go here and rotate it along the X, rotate it along the Y, and then rotate it a little bit on the Z. Boom. And then we're gonna go I, location, rotation. So the plane should look like this. Awesome. But you don't want this to speed up and then slow down. You want this all as a one fluid motion. So the way we get around that is you go into here, press T, linear, and now the default for Blender when you set a location or rotation is Bezier, but we just switched to linear, so now it's going to go in one fluid motion. Awesome. So we have the plane animated. Now we need to start letting Blender do its thing with its physics system. So we're going to start off with the ground. Select the ground. Go into the physics tab right here. Click rigid body. You don't want it as active because that's what the plane is going to be. You don't want a falling ground either. So I set it as passive. Awesome. The ground isn't going to fall, and then we're going to want to set the plane as active. But there's one hiccup. If you do that, the plane's just going to fall through. So the way we get around that is go on around frame 18 and click this animated checkbox. You see the plane jumped, and keyframe that. So you can either press this button here or press I, or hover your cursor over it and press I. Then we're going to go one frame ahead, uncheck this, and we're going to keyframe it. I'm going to do it the other way. Click this button. So you come down, and the plane, yes, that's what you want. You want it to interact with the ground and do its little bouncy thing. So I'm going to put this, I'm gonna slice this in about half, so it goes to 100, and you can see it's gonna play out. Maybe a little longer, 150. Plane hits, bounces around a little bit. Right now the plane weighs 1 kilogram, and the friction on here is not that isn't that heavy. You can play around with the friction in the future. We'll do that when we start breaking the thing apart. But for now, we're gonna give this ground. I'm actually gonna scale it a little bit more, give it a little bit more width, give it a little bit more girth. But Now we want to turn this plane into more like ground, and there's a very easy way of doing that, which is you want to go into Modifiers tab, and since this is a plane, give it a little bit of geometry. I like to go give it full 6, make it a simple, make it a simple subsurf that'll leave it in its original shape, and then Control A, apply that, and now you can see we have a lot of geometry. That's what we want. It's going to help us with our particles in the future, um, and all the other stuff. So now we're going to go into we're making ground, right? We're going to go into displace. At a displace modifier, you can see it jumps it up like this. Now uh, that's okay. You want to just give it a new texture that'll calm it down, bring it back down, and give it a cloud texture. Right now, this is way too crazy. The way you dial down the craziness is take the strength, and tone it way down. And this is where you can play around. You can either give it like some sharper edges or whatever. I don't recommend giving it the full 1 because that's going to be way too tough. You want to give it a decent amount and make it look decently like ground. So we tone down the strength, go back into here, and you can play around with the size. The smaller you make it, the jaggier it gets. The more the larger the size, the more it's going to kind of like calm out. I think this is perfect. The depth will kind of smooth it out a little bit too. I'm not too worried about the depth. Boom. That doesn't do that much, but I think that is a good ground. And then shade smooth, make it look nice. And now, if we play this plane, you're gonna see it doesn't really interact with the the um the bumps and everything like that. The reason being is right now Blender is looking at this as a box. It's imagining it as a box with no geometry in the middle, no bends or anything. It is just a box. So the way we make Blender recognize that this is supposed to be, there's supposed to be like bumps and stuff like that for the plane to interact with, is we switch it from convex hull here in the physics tab to mesh. So if you didn't see how I did that, click your ground and you switch it to mesh. Now the plane interacts a lot better with the ground. You can see it kind of goes into it. It kind of goes into it follows those hills and those crevices. So you're gonna want that because it's gonna play a big role with our fracture once we start breaking this thing apart. So thank you for watching. This was part 1, which was just setting up the scene. If you want to get ahead of the game and go into part 2, then download 2.7. Yes, you're gonna use 2.7, but for a very like short amount of time. Um, it's very simple. Download 2.7. It's all in the link in the description with the modifier. The fracture modifier. It is 2.7, so you just download that modifier and you will be ahead of the game, and you can play around. You can start playing around in there and see how that all works. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.